Emory College, or the School of Nursing. All right, so we'll begin by talking a little bit about some terminology around scholarships. So we'll start with institutional merit. Colleges and universities screen for merit-based scholarships during the admissions process. And sometimes they have separate applications. Sometimes they only look at the FAFSA. Sometimes you self-select through the college application you're filling out. So sometimes they're merit-based or get considered needs, sometimes they don't. So there's a lot of considerations. That's what I feel like that's what I always say when I talk to families is it depends. So it depends on a lot of different things, but institutional merit money is money that comes from the school and has at least some kind of merit-based component. So we have some state-based merit aid, the Hope and Zell Miller Scholarship. And so I know you'll hear a little bit more about these later. Georgia Futures is a fantastic resource if you want to go on and look at that website. It has a lot of information for you for Hope and Zell, but for other kind of outside scholarships and other things as well. And again, they can't really go to out-of-state colleges and universities. Those are going to be used in-state. And so now we'll go talk about need-based aid. That's a little bit different. Merit-based aid, there's a reason they're giving you that scholarship money, that gift aid, and typically it's GPA. Sometimes it's something else that you bring to the school. Need-based aid is awarded based on your family's financial need. And there's different ways of a school might compile or figure out your need-based, your need amount. And that's either through the FAFSA or the CSS profile application. All schools use the FAFSA pretty much. Some schools also use the CSS profile. That's an additional form that's run through the College Board. And so schools base the aid on the family's expected family contribution, and it will usually vary by academic school year, but your EFC or your expected family contribution should not vary by school from the FAFSA. That EFC is yours, it's specific to your family, and it'll follow you school to school. The difference you pay is then based on the school's cost of attendance. So common need-based aid includes Pell, SEOG, Georgia Tuition Equalization Grant, and institutional grants. And these typically, the ones we just talked about, they don't have to be repaid. Again, we call that gift aid. Now another component of need-based aid could be federal loans, and that's a real common hot topic this year with the election. So federal loans do have to be repaid, as most of you probably are aware. So a little bit more terminology here. External or private scholarships. These are scholarships that a student has that comes from outside the school they attend. So external meaning outside the school. And so these can come from any kind of organization or group. A lot of times they're from civic organizations. Sometimes they're from a family's employer. And we really encourage you to look not just online. There's a lot of search engines. There's a lot of places you can go look online to find scholarships. They might be based on different factors on your major. They might be based on female, male, and science, those kind of things. But really look at your civic organizations in your local community. So for you guys in Newton County, look for organizations, Rotary clubs, churches that are in your community, because the applicant pool for those tends to be much smaller. When you're talking about scholarships that are listed online, everyone's looking at the same scholarships as you. And so the applicant pool there tends to be really, really large. So the money might be greater there, but the applicant pool is greater as well. So really hone in on your local organization. You might find 5 or 6 scholarships locally that can really add up to what, one scholarship might be online. So let's say you were awarded a scholarship. First, congratulations. So students are typically competing with a large pool of impressive candidates, and it's an achievement to really celebrate that you got a scholarship. But now what? So first, you need to reach out to the organization and let them know what university you're going to attend, what you know. Then there's other next steps that are involved. You need to understand the money. Understand, is it a one-time scholarship, or will that scholarship be repeated for every year you're in school, for all 4 years in school? Will you get a lump in the fall for the fall and spring, or they send you a check in the fall and then an additional check in the spring? Are there any eligibility requirements to continue to receive the scholarship? Sometimes they're GPA based, sometimes they might be based on your major. So again, just understand your part and your role in that scholarship. Will class registration need to be confirmed before the scholarship is sent to the school? Sometimes they want to make sure you're enrolled in classes, that you are, active and attending classes. You might have a minimum, you have to take 12 hours or something like that. So just every scholarship's a little bit different, every organization is different, so just pay attention to kind of the fine print. Also, ask if they'll be mailing the check to the university. If so, you might need to provide them with the address. So then you'll need to follow up with the university and figure out where you want that check to be mailed. I will say, in this COVID world, that's a little bit more challenging, as mail is a little bit more difficult with people working remotely. So definitely ask. Typically, you would ask the financial aid office, where should I have my check sent? They'll know and be able to put you in touch with the right place. And again, ask for a good point of contact in case more questions come up in the future. So that would be for the financial aid office or whoever on your campus, but also with the organization providing you with the money. You might have to contact them down the line. There's different things that could come up. If the check doesn't show up, you might need to follow up with them. So definitely have someone you can reach out to. So then contact the university you're going to attend and let them know you're going to receive a scholarship. And this is because all universities are going to require you to disclose an outside scholarship if you're receiving need-based aid, because it can impact your aid. A student can only receive so much financial aid, and an outside scholarship, external scholarship, is considered need-based aid. Again, the mailing instructions, which office you send it to. Do I need to write my student ID on the check? Do I need to list it this way? Go ahead and find somebody at the university that you trust, and it's good to have those relationships anyway, so this is a good time to start building those relationships with the school you choose to attend. You can also ask how you confirm that the school has received the scholarship check. And some schools have specific deadlines on which they need to have your money by. So if that's the case, you'll need to know that and then communicate that back to this organization providing you with money. So again, you're kind of the middleman here, but it's getting you money. So it's a great place to be. So just be really proactive in communication between your school and your scholarship organization. So again, I mentioned a little bit of the impact on financial aid. So our recommendation is to always reach out to the financial aid office at your school and ask them how the external scholarship will impact your financial aid if you receive need-based aid. Every school's policy varies. So oftentimes they will just automatically, if you're receiving need-based grant, they might just subtract the scholarship amount from your grant. Some schools do that. Other schools have a different way of calculating it. You cannot receive aid past the cost of attendance for a university, and again, past your need amount. So there's kind of different factors in there, and it's a little bit confusing. So I really recommend that if you do receive need-based aid, you go ahead and develop a relationship with that financial aid office at your school. We're typically really nice people, and you won't be the first person to ask these questions, and it's always better to understand really how that's going to impact your aid, how it will change, if it'll change your the amount you have to pay, when bills are due, those kind of things. The aid office is great, and they can help you understand all of that process. So if you don't receive any need-based aid, then your scholarship will just go straight towards your account balance that's due, typically one in the fall and one in the spring. And so regulations state that combined amounts of a student's aid cannot exceed their cost of attendance. I mentioned this. If the student receives institutional, federal, or state aid. So the cost of attendance is comprised of two different types of cost. Those kind of direct costs that you pay for in your bill, those billed costs. And it also has a factor of indirect costs in there that you don't actually pay. These are things like books, right? You will pay for books, but they're not necessarily, you won't pay the school with your bill with books, right? You'll pay those differently. Another part of indirect costs would be just kind of personal cost, right? What you have to live on campus, to buy your shampoo and things like that to support yourself while you're in school. If a student receives any institutional need-based aid, the scholarship could potentially reduce the aid coming from the university. But again, like I said, it depends. So just understand your school and their policies. Some scholarship organizations require proof of enrollment before the scholarship can be applied to your account. I mentioned that. The registrar is where you would get this. Sometimes they'll provide that before the school starts, saying that you registered for classes. Sometimes they won't actually provide that to you until classes have started. So just know that what your organization needs, and know what your school and how your school works. Some organizations have their own form. Some organizations will take what your school provides. Typically, your school will let you print out your proof of enrollment online, and you can just send it to your scholarship group. Sometimes the scholarship group has their own form. And again, there might be a little bit of delay in enrollment depending on your school's policy. And usually after classes, after add, drop, swap, which is the first 2 days of classes, then you're kind of considered enrolled. Your enrollment is set once you can no longer add, drop, or swap classes. And that's kind of what they'll use as your time of enrollment. So recommendations for you guys as you look to apply for scholarships. Go ahead and apply to as many external scholarships as you can, since you don't know what institution you'll be attending. You don't know if you'll receive need-based aid yet. And you don't really know how things are going to turn out. So just go ahead and cast a wide net to start. And don't think about a small scholarship. I wouldn't avoid applying for a scholarship or going after a scholarship because it only gave you a small amount. 10 small scholarships can really add up quickly. And like I said earlier with the applicant pool, that applicant pool might be smaller as well, right? Other people might be deterred by a smaller scholarship, and you might be then more likely to receive that money. Do research on the schools you're applying to. Some require separate applications or deadlines to be considered for their scholars program, their kind of merit-based programming. So know deadlines, know your deadlines. That's the biggest one for scholarships with your schools. And always fill out the FAFSA. Some schools require the FAFSA before they'll consider you for merit scholarships. Whether or not you actually will qualify for need-based aid, they might still want that FAFSA for their processes. So then just know what your school requires. And again, for that first year, I would always fill out the FAFSA. And scholarships are great resume pointers. Here are some specific resources for you all. First off, I mentioned your specific university's Office of Financial Aid. They're a big help with scholarships. They know this, they've had these conversations, so you might be able to ask them for tips or just ideas about where you can go to and where you can apply. And you can ask them also how it works at their school, about the timing and when a student should apply by to be considered for scholars and things like that. The College Board has some information on their website. FastWeb is another place you can look, and they have a lot of good scholarship information. The Gates Millennium Scholar Program is listed. The Hispanic Scholarship Directory. Georgia Futures has some on there. And there's way more out there than this. There's a whole wealth of information. Nerd Wallets, some other sites have come up and are really getting into this. Just really be mindful as you look online. Never provide too much of your personal identifying information to a scholarship organization because there are some scams out there. So there are people who are phishing and looking to get your information to then use it in bad ways. So if it seems too good to be true, or if they seem like they're really asking too much personal information, I wouldn't go that route. There's plenty more out there. Just look at a different scholarship. And also, don't pay for scholarship service. That's another kind of scam that's out there, and people fall prey to that very easily. There's a lot of free information, so stick to the free information. It's not worth paying for. All right. So that's kind of my fast information on scholarships. Does anyone have any questions for me around scholarships? I'm happy to answer things.
All right, so we would ask if you have a question based on the information that Emily has presented. We want to ask that you put those questions in the chat, and at the conclusion of Ms. Vaughn's presentation, we're going to open the floor to answer those questions from the audience. You will be allowed to either post your question in the chat, or if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your questions directly to the panel. So if you would, Ms. Vaughn, you can go ahead and take the floor.
All right, good evening. So get where I can, okay. So we're going to talk about Financial Aid 101, and part of it is, a lot of it is about scholarships, which she did a really good job of going through all of that, the piece for you about scholarships. So I'm going to just talk briefly about financial aid, the different types, the federal programs, the state aid programs, and then how to apply. And so financial aid really is just to help you pay for those college expenses. Those can be direct or indirect costs. So the direct costs are those that are being paid directly to the institution. And then the indirect costs are those things that you're going to be paying not directly to the institution. So maybe groceries or rent if you're living off campus, books and supplies and those kinds of things. All of those would be incorporated in the cost of attendance, which is the estimate that the institution feels that it would cost you to attend that university. And she related that to cost of attendance a lot in her presentation. So the different types of financial aid will help you pay for those costs related to the indirect and the direct costs. And there are different types of financial aid. We went through scholarships a great deal. There are grants, a work study program, and there are loans that you would have to be paid back. So something came up about starting a video, sorry. But the loans you would have to pay back. So you want to be careful with that. And all of those scholarships, the grants, there are different resources for that. And so you could, the different sources are from the federal state government. Colleges and universities may have institutional aid, as was referred to earlier, private foundations, public service organizations, employers. A lot of those places also have aid that could be available. So for the federal program, you do have to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, a valid Social Security number. Males have to be registered for Selective Service. You're legally required at the age of 18 to register, and it's the draft. Doesn't mean you have to wait till you're 18 to complete the FAFSA. You have a way to register on the FAFSA, but you do have to be registered to be able to receive any federal or state aid. And you have to be maintaining satisfactory academic progress. And that means that you have to be completing the courses that you are enrolled in. So if you're thinking about withdrawing from a course, you want to make sure you're talking to your academic advisor and your financial aid advisor to see how it can affect your financial aid. And the federal government has several different grants. The Pell Grant is based on the EFC, which is your expected family contribution. That number is derived from the information that you're putting on the FAFSA. So the lower that number is, the more aid that you're eligible for. That EFC is not a check that you have to write to anybody or anything like that. It's just a number to use to determine eligibility. There's also the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. You can get up to $4,000 with that grant if you're eligible. It is first come, first serve, so you want to make sure you're applying early. Each institution has their own priority consideration deadline. So the financial aid office says, if you apply by this date and you're eligible for this aid, you're more likely to get it. And then there's also the work study program. It's also based on your EFC and first come, first serve. So for your loans, again, you want to make sure you are getting all the scholarships, all the grants that you can get first, because that's money you don't have to pay back. And then there's the loans. Subsidized loans means that you do not accrue interest on the loan while you're in school. So if you borrow $1,000 as a freshman and you don't borrow any more money and you're graduating, you only pay back the $1,000. But once you're in repayment, then that $1,000 will start accruing at 2.75%. So the longer it takes you to pay it off, the more interest you will be accruing. Unsubsidized loans, you will be accruing interest while you're in school at the 2.75%. Parents can take out a Parent Plus loan. The parent can take up to cost of attendance. It's only one parent is the borrower. It is based on credit history, and it will accrue at 5.3%. Parents can pay on it while the student is in school, or they can wait and defer payment until after graduation. Students are limited to the amount of money that they can borrow. So as a freshman, the most you can borrow is $5,500. Only $3,500 of it, if you're eligible, can be in the subsidized loan. So you can borrow some of it, all of it, or none of it. So you want to make sure you know exactly how much money you need before you're looking at loans and borrowing that, because this part is what you're going to have to pay back. So the Georgia Financial Aid Program, to be able to receive any of the HOPE program money, you do have to be eligible for the federal aid. So you have to meet all of those requirements. Plus you have to meet these additional requirements, which means you have to be an eligible or a legal resident of the state of Georgia, and you have to be attending an eligible post-secondary institution. That list is on gafutures.org. What I can tell you is that none of those institutions are outside the state of Georgia. So, in order to use the HOPE program, you do have to stay within the state of Georgia. There are two real different distinctions in the HOPE program: the scholarship side and the grant side. The scholarship is if you're pursuing an associate's degree or bachelor's degree. And the grant side is if you're pursuing a certificate or diploma program. So all depending on what degree program you're in will determine if you're going to be towards the scholarships or the grants. So we'll talk about the scholarship side first, and we'll talk about the HOPE scholarship. So again, pursuing an associate's degree or bachelor's degree, you have to have a 3.0 high school HOPE GPA, and you have to have 4 credits of rigorous coursework. Rigorous coursework can be any AP course, IB course, dual enrollment, core course, any advanced math, science, or foreign language 2 or higher. And advanced math may not say advanced math. It could be chemistry, biology, pre-calculus, algebra 2. Any of those are considered advanced math or science. There's a complete list on GA Futures that you're able to look at to make sure you're seeing what courses are considered rigor. And we're the only ones at the Georgia Student Finance Commission that calculates the HOPE GPA. We calculate from 9th grade to 12th grade. For you seniors, you could go tonight and you can look at your HOPE calculation from 9th grade to 11th grade. In February, we'll do a preliminary calculation, and then we'll do a final calculation at graduation, which will determine your eligibility. We calculate based on the transcripts that's uploaded by your high school. Any rigorous courses are weighted 0.5, and you can find your HOPE GPA at gafutures.org and click on the My HOPE GPA. It will look like this. So you will know your HOPE calculation. You will know how many rigor credits you have thus far. And if you want a full detailed report, you can look at the View My Detailed GPA report, and it will show you exactly which courses are being calculated in the HOPE GPA and which ones we have considered as rigor. So for the HOPE scholarship, you'll enter with a 3.0 high school HOPE GPA. To maintain it, you have to have a 3.0 college HOPE GPA. We'll check every spring semester and when you attempt 30, 60, and 90 hours. Your college HOPE GPA is going to be different than your cumulative college GPA. So you will continue to come to GA Futures and to My GA Futures and to look into your college profile. We will upload, the college will upload transcripts every semester, and we'll do a new calculation every semester. So you want to make sure you know exactly what your college HOPE GPA is. So for the Zell Miller Scholarship, to receive that, you could be the valedictorian or the salutatorian, or You can have a minimum of a 3.7 high school Hope GPA, and you have to have a 1200 on the SAT or a 26 on the ACT. I know a lot of admissions are waiving the SAT, ACT requirements. Right now, Zell Miller, it is still a requirement. Now that could change at any point. It changed last year for the seniors who graduated 2020. In fact, it changed a few months ago. They had a deadline of December 30th. Now they have until June, I think. So at any point that could change. So you want to make sure you're listening and getting emails and making sure you're staying on top of all of this information. But right now, the test score is still required for the Zell Miller. So you'll come in with a 3.7, you'll maintain it with a 3.3 College Hope GPA, and again, we'll check every spring semester, and 30, 60, 90 attempted hour. To lose the Hope or the Zell Miller Scholarship, you'd lose it if you're not maintaining that GPA, if you've reached your 127 semester hours, reached your 10-year limit, or if you've received your first bachelor's degree. So that's the scholarship side. The grant side, again, it's if you're going for a certificate or diploma program, there is no high school GPA required and no test score required. So you'll enter in the institution with a certificate or diploma program, and you will, if you maintain a 2.0 college cumulative GPA, and we'll check at your 30 and 60 paid hour, to make sure you have the 2.0, you would continue to receive the Hope grant. Now, for the Zell Miller grant, you can actually earn that while you're in college if you earn a 3.5 cumulative college GPA. We will be checking that, and as long as you keep that, you would be able to receive the Zell Miller grant. The Hope Career Grant is they are high demand certificate and diploma programs that we are needing more workforce in the state of Georgia. So there is additional funding. If you are selecting a certificate or diploma program within the Hope Career Grant, that list is on gafutures.org as well. So how much money do you get from these different scholarships and grants? So for the Hope Scholarship and the Hope Grant, you would be able to receive a portion of your tuition. No fees, no housing, no books, no supplies, just a portion of the tuition. It is a rate. It's set by the state government, state legislatures, and we won't know what next year's rate is, but you can look on GA Futures under award amounts to see the institution and what they're receiving this year to get an idea of what it could be next year. For the Zell Miller Scholarship and the Zell Miller Grant, you would receive the full standard tuition. And for the Hope Career Grant, it depends on the institute or the program of study and the hours that you are enrolled. And if you combine the Hope Career Grant with the Hope Grant on several of the programs, that could pay your full tuition. So it's a really good idea if you're looking into the technical school at all and certificate diploma programs to check out those programs to see what's available and to see if you can apply for one of those. So the application process, you have the GSFAPPS and you have the FAFSA. The GSFAPPS, it will determine state aid only. It's a one-time application. You would go to gafutures.org, log in under the student's account, click on the Hope State Aid tab, State Aid Applications, and then the GSFAPPS. The FAFSA, it's available October 1st of every year. You do have to renew it every year. It will determine eligibility for both state and federal aid. But we strongly encourage you to do both. First, the GSFAPPS is valid for 10 years. So if a student decides not to renew the FAFSA, we'll continue to review the College Hope GPA for eligibility. Secondly, after the FAFSA is submitted, a student could be selected for verification, and verification could extend the processing time for federal aid. And since the GSFAPPS is not included in that process, state aid could go ahead and be awarded if eligible. When you're completing the FAFSA, you can complete it by downloading the My Student Aid app on your phone, or you can complete it at FAFSA.gov. You will need an FSA ID, Federal Student Aid ID. The student, the applicant will need one, and a parent will need one. You both need one because you're both going to electronically sign the FAFSA, and you'll need it if you file tax returns to download your tax returns. So first step is going to fsaid.ed.gov, creating your own username, your own password, your own account. Only one email address, one phone number, one social, one birth date can be per account. So you want to make sure, especially students, you don't want to use your high school email address. You want to use a personal email address because you're going to be using this for the next 4 or 5 years, renewing your FAFSA. You'll have to determine which FAFSA you want to complete. Most high school seniors will be graduating spring 2021, and you'll be attending the post-secondary institution fall 2021. So that means you'll want to complete the 21-22 FAFSA, and you'll be using your 2019 tax returns. Here, again, males, you have to register for Selective Service. You can mark no that you haven't registered. The very next question will be, do you want us to register? You mark yes there. The colleges that you can list up to 10. You do not have to apply to them. You do not have to have been accepted. If you're remotely thinking about going, you can list them. And again, you can list up to 10. You can always, if you put a school in and you submit it and you thought, oh no, I need to submit add another school, you can always go back in and add more schools. So what on the FAFSA, parents are married or living together. If my parent is divorced, I will think about which parent did I live with the most the last 12 months, and that's the parent I will use on the FAFSA. If that's equal, then I will think about the parent that financially supported me the most the last 12 months. And if that's also equal, you can pick one. But whatever parent you do select, if that parent is remarried, you will be putting the step parent's information and no longer the other biological parent's information. So if you're able to use the data retrieval tool, it looks like this, and you'll have to enter the address that you used on your tax return. So if you moved, you want to make sure to use the old address. If on the tax return they have abbreviated, like for example here they abbreviated drive, then you need to abbreviate drive. If they spell it out, you need to spell it out. If they misspell it, you need to misspell it. So it needs to look exactly as it does on the tax return. You'll click submit, and if it's a match, you can hit transfer now, and that will transfer the information from your tax return onto your FAFSA. Then both you and the parent will sign the FAFSA. You will provide student and parent signature. You'll agree to the terms and conditions and sign and submit. For parents that do, you will not be able to create your tax return manually and be able to print a signature page to sign and submit. Once you submit, you'll receive a confirmation page. It will tell you your expected family contribution. It will tell you if you're Pell eligible. It will tell you you're eligible for loans, but you will not know if it's going to be a subsidized or unsubsidized loan. That's all depending on the other aid that's being offered as well. If there's any special circumstances, so what you filed in 2019 isn't exactly what's happening in 2020. The suggestion is to go ahead and file with the 2019, then contact the institution and let them know that there's been some changes and they can get whatever documentation they need to then make any adjustments that they can. And this is our territory map. Again, my name is Brenda Vaughn. This is my email address, my phone number, and I'm the one in the purple shirt, but the yellow territory. And the QR code is a code that links you directly to a web page where you can book appointments with me. So if you need any help at all, any questions, if we need to Zoom anything to help with the FAFSA, you can always reach out to me and I'll be glad to help in any way that I can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you so much, Emily. I want to thank our panelists for sharing the awesome information on scholarships, on federal aid that they have shared with us this evening. So now we have come to the portion where we're going to open the floor for questions. So if any of our attendees have any specific questions about scholarships for Ms. Culberson or federal or state aid programs from Ms. Vaughn, please, we ask that you unmute yourself, ask your question, and we can begin that dialogue.
I have a question about GA futures. So about does every Georgia student have an account, or do we have to create it like a personal one?
Okay, I will throw this one to...
Every student will create one.
I'm sorry, you glitched out.
Most of them have one because they're checking their HOPE GPA, or if they're doing dual enrollment. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so every student, every Georgia student should create a GA Futures account. They would just click on create an account and create that. They would need it to check their HOPE GPA. They would need it to apply for colleges. They would need it to also complete that GSFAPPS.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ms. Vaughn. Do we have any additional questions from our audience?
I have a question. Hi, my name is Kennedy Tinley. So my first question would be, is there, when you do apply for a scholarship, is there like an expiration date? Because I am a junior and I mean, I'm not ready to go to college just yet, but if I were to apply for a scholarship and say I were to get it, would there be an amount of time where it runs out and I'll have to apply for it again, or?
Okay, well, we can have Emily or Brenda speak to this. Emily, if you want to
Sure.
speak to it first.
I would say that kind of depends on the organization providing you with the money. So I would check with them. They'll usually, wherever you're looking to find that scholarship description, it'll say what year it's for. So if it's for next year when you're still a junior, that would be your senior year, I would hold off. But just check with the organization. Most likely you would really kind of concentrate your scholarship search your senior year, because that's where most of them are going to be for your first year of college. But you certainly could start looking as a junior. It wouldn't hurt. There may be some out there for you.
And I would add to that, if you search now, a lot of times that application is the exact same application next year. So if you think you're eligible for it, if you want to print that and start filling it out, put it in a folder chronological by due date next year, that would be a lot less work you have to do your senior year.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. We do have a question from our audience about whether this event will be made available via a recording. Yes, for all of you who registered, we will share this on the College and Career Readiness team YouTube channel. So yes, we are recording this, and we will share it to you so you can go back to it for your reference. So with that said, we'll take another question from our audience.
Hi, my name is Alana Dixon, and I am on GA Features right now, and I'm looking at my Hope calculated GPA, and it says that you are currently meeting the requirements. I was wondering, if we meet, will we receive the Hope after we graduate? I'm a senior, or will we receive it when we get into the college that we want to go to?
So you will never actually see money in your hand from the Hope Scholarship. It will be paid directly to the institution. So once you've graduated and we've done a final calculation and you're eligible, you will enroll in the school for whatever hours that you're enrolling for, and the institution will let us know, and then we pay that part of the tuition or the full tuition, depending if you're Hope or Zell.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, Alana.
You're welcome.
One quick thing to add with that, that money doesn't usually go to the institutions until kind of midsummer after you graduate. A lot of students get nervous about that. Sometimes it's a whole process. Brenda and I know all about it, but don't get nervous if that money, you don't see it necessarily on your account. Like you just graduated in May and it's not there yet. It's going to happen. And sometimes I know when we award our students at Emory, we award everyone with Hope until we hear if they actually qualify for Zell or Hope. So it may show up as Hope in your financial aid award. Know that you still might get Zell later on. It's just a little bit of a process and a timing thing.
Okay, I have one more question. When you're referring to the account, how do we see the account where the money is going to be at? Do we go to our financial aid person, or is there a website?
That's where it would be. It was with your school. So whatever school you end up depositing with and enrolling with, you'll have an account with them, and every school does it very differently. But that's where you'll see the money actually kind of hit your book, so to speak, and go towards your bill is with the school that you actually choose to attend. Like Brenda said, it never actually goes to you personally. It's all kind of systematic.
It'll be like a student portal. So you'll get an email address directly from the institution, and then that's where you'll register for classes. That's where you'll see your financial aid package. That's where you'll see everything at that institution.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions here. So we still have the floor open for questions. So if anyone in the audience has a question for our panelists, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask your question.
It's me again. I have one more question. So if I were like to go to college, but if I transfer out of the state to like say an Ivy League school or in California, would I still receive that aid?
Which aid?
Like the financial aid from this.
You mean like you would lose Hope at that point, which sounds so sad, right? But it depends on the aid you're talking about. If you're talking about an external scholarship from a group
like
out,
state aid, federal state aid.
State aid stays in state.
Okay.
And then external scholarships might go with you, and then need-based aid from your institution, if you're no longer at that institution, would stop, and then you would have to apply at the new institution to which you attend.
And the federal aid, from the federal aid, will stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
The federal aid will go with you, whatever institution you are in the United States.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sean. My daughter is a sophomore. Does she have a GA Futures account? Do we have to do it through the school?
You would just create it. You can just go to gafutures.org, and at the top of the page it says create an account, and then she would just create one, and she would be able to see her Hope GPA as of her freshman year. And then when she's done with her sophomore year, we will recalculate, including the freshman and sophomore year, and then again after her 11th grade year and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and I will take before we have another question from the audience, I do have a question from the chat. And the question is, I think for Ms. Vaughn, you mentioned that on GA Future, students are able to see the award amounts specific to each college and university for Hope Scholarship and Hope Grant. They wanted to know where exactly they could find that.
So if you click on the Hope State Aid tab, and then you can click on the Hope Zell Scholarship tab. And then I believe it says award amounts over to the left. You click on award amounts. And then you would pick if it's a technical school, private school, or a public school. And then you would select the school itself, and it would list Hope Grant, Hope Scholarship, Zell Miller Grant, Zell Miller Scholarship for that institution.
Awesome, thank you. So thank you so much. So if we have another, we'll take another question from the audience.
Hi, my name is Ayana. I was wondering, since COVID made it hard for like us to get an SAT test in, how long do we have to take the SAT if we're a senior for Zell Miller?
Right now, it's still graduation, and that's standard from year to year. That could change. It changed last year for the 2020 students, where they actually were able to go to college with Hope, have time to take the SAT score. If they were able to get their SAT score up to Zell Miller, we went back and paid the difference. And that for 2020 has been extended till the end of this year now because of COVID and not being able to take the test. But for you as a senior right now, it's still just until graduation. Again, if that changes, I'm guessing we would know probably, I don't know, March or April. I don't think they're going to do it too soon. And I'm understanding, and Stephen, you might be able to confirm this, or that at College Board, they're doing much more testing now from what I hear. They're setting up tests and things like that. Now, how long it lasts, I don't know. But just keep your ears open to see if that changes. But right now, you have until graduation.
Yes, towards the fall, College Board was increasing the frequency of testing despite limited seating on a monthly basis. But yes, I would make sure that you are on College Board or either act.org and trying to get a seat to test if possible in a safe testing environment. So, all right, so we'll take another question from the audience.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Kennedy Tinley again. Is there a limit to the amount of scholarships you can apply for?
No, you can apply for as many as you want. I mean, at your institution, if you're talking about merit-based for your institution, they're going to be limited to what they offer. But as far as external, you can apply to as many as you want to. And I would encourage you all to look at scholarships that have an essay component. A lot of times we're talking about applicant pools. Students don't like to apply to those because it takes more time and more energy. So those are good to look at too. Don't forget those and don't discount those. Take the time to write those essays and make sure you tailor your essay to the scholarship. Don't use a blanket essay talking about yourself and apply to many scholarships. Scholarship committees won't like that. Tailor it to the specific scholarship you're looking at.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great question. Great question. Any more questions from our audience? Please feel free. Trust me, a question that you may be thinking about, someone in our audience is probably also thinking about the same thing.
I had a question about the GATE scholarship. So when it comes to that scholarship for current juniors, when would we be able to apply, but also should we start it now?
Yes, I would start looking at that as a junior and looking at the requirements and kind of planning ahead. And you can work, I would assume, with your college, your counselors at school, they can help you with that process if you needed it. But absolutely start on that kind of scholarship a little bit earlier because they have a little bit more of a process involved.
Yes, typically, and to add on to Emily's point, Ariana, typically the GATE scholarship opens up and is available in August, and it typically, the deadline is mid-September. So if you're thinking about preparation time, you can look at it opening up in August and closing in sometime in September.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions from our audience?
Hello, my name is Elijah Mall. Regarding the GATE scholarship, do you know any of the specific requirements or eligibility?
Well, I definitely have to direct you, honestly, to the Gates Scholarship website and also connect with your college and career readiness specialist at your respective high school. We're here to support you. Any questions that you have about the Gates Scholarship in terms of preparing, completing the application itself, preparing your essay, any other requirements, please connect with your college and career readiness specialist. I'm the liaison for Newton High School. Miss Tasia Ellis is the liaison for Alcovey High School. Miss Alicia Walker is a representative for Eastside High School. Connect with us. We're here to support you and help you submit the strongest and most competitive application you can.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions from our audience? Well, if we don't have any more questions, it looks like we may finish up about 5 minutes early. I want to again thank our panelists, Miss Emily Culberson from Oxford College and Miss Brenda Vaughn from the Georgia Student Finance Commission for taking some time to share some valuable and wealth of information on creative and different ways to pay for college, which I'm sure is on the minds of all students and parents. No matter if you're a senior, junior, no matter what grade you're in, it's never too early, never too late to find various ways to pay for college. So this is going to conclude Paying for Your Future. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Again, this session has been recorded as well as our previous sessions. We will make those available to you via our YouTube channel. So if you receive the flyer, please make sure that you have actually completed the registration form and we have your contact information because that is how we will disseminate the information with the link to our YouTube channel so that you can come back to this session and previous sessions to find out all the information you need to know about your college and career planning efforts. So thank you so much. And if we don't have any more questions, I think that will finish it up for the evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Take